For those that don't know me, my name's Grant. I'm the VP of Sales here at Prosple, and I'm joined today with my colleague Frimcel, who is our new. Well, maybe you can introduce yourself, actually, Frimcel.
Yeah, well, thanks, Grant. So, KR everyone, I'm Frimcel Ayalin. I'm the Partnerships Manager looking after our Australia and New Zealand partners. Great to see everyone here.
Thanks, Frimcel, and yeah, lovely to have you part of the team. So, Frimcel, you've been here for 3 weeks, 4 weeks now?
More than a month now. Well, I started last October, so
time flies.
Yeah. Right, agree.
So Frimcel will be your for all the polytechs and universities online. Frimcel will be the point of contact moving forward, assisting us. And yeah, hopefully you liked our video. We were very excited to share it because we only created it a few weeks ago, and I don't know, I find the background music quite catching, so we thought to share it to begin with. But like I mentioned, so we've got a few things to cover off today. Obviously, we're here to talk about 2021 Super Fairs and the virtual events that Prosple will be running to help all of your students find, hopefully, their dream job with their dream company. So very, very excited. We, as a lot of you will know, we ran these events this year and they were extremely successful. Students absolutely love them and employers like them too. So very excited to share our plans. So we'll walk through just as a very quick recap of the 2021 Super Fairs, our key learnings as well, which has very much influenced our decisions in terms of how we are actually going to produce the events moving into next year. And that'll obviously tie nicely into our plans for 2022. And I'll give you all a sneak peek as to what it will look like as well, which we're pretty excited to share. We've got a little demo mode as well. But feel free, we've got questions mentioned for the end, but whilst it's a webinar and that, let's keep it pretty conversational on that. I know I enjoy that. So feel free to pop any questions in the chat, and Frimcel and I can, if it's very relevant for the topic, then of course we can answer that question then. If not, then we can park it towards the end. So for those who aren't so familiar about Prosple and who we are and what we do, we're a careers and education technology company. So we started back in way too long ago, in 2015, and we shipped our first ever product in Australia, which was an Australian Top 100 Graduate Employers Guide. And since then, we've grown very, very quickly to produce over 150 career directories across not only New Zealand, but Australia and Southeast Asia as well. All of which is helping, we've actually just ticked over, helping around 2.5 million students annually find work. And very proud to share that over the last, or this year alone rather, in New Zealand, we've helped around 150,000 students across New Zealand find work. So yeah, very, very proud of our achievements on that front. But of course, we're not done, and hence why we're looking into the Super Fairs and that for next year. As a little bit of a summary in terms of how we work, we call this the Prosple ecosystem per se. So we help connecting students, educators, and employers together via this Prosple ecosystem. So we'll work with employers like AECOM, Becca, Bank of New Zealand, etc., to connect their opportunities with students, and vice versa. Obviously, we'll work with universities and polytechs to help them increase their all of you online, your employability of your students as well via technology and our resources. So I might hand the mic over to Frimcel, who's going to take us through the summary of what we did this year. Over to you, Frimcel.
Yep, thank you, Grant. So just sharing with everyone is that in 2021, we've run 7 synchronized career fairs, mainly in May into August and up to September. We've had the Maori and Pacifica Super Fair in May, in the engineering, construction, and business, as well as computing and technology super fairs in August. And then in September, we've had the health careers and diversity careers super fair. And through this super fairs, we're able to see a total number of registrations of about 3,406 students. If we can go to the next slide, please, Grant. So you'll see here that during the event, we're able to have a total of 3,406 students who registered, with 139 total exhibitors coming from different sectors and employers. And there are about 936 students who joined the booth, and about 1,369 who joined the panel session. This only shows that we have a lot of student employer engagement throughout these sessions, and students get the opportunity to ask questions to our employers during these sessions. And looking at the next slide, you will also see how we were able to identify which sector or industry is most popular to students. We've seen that engineering and constructions, as well as software and technology, has been the most popular industry sector, followed by accounting, banking, and financial services. In terms of employers, Ecom and Consulate General of Canada, as well as KPMG, were the top employers where participants were able to join and engage and ask questions. And these are just some of the industry and employers that we have partnered with in 2021, and we're looking forward to have more industry and employers to be partnered with in 2022. Now, Grant will talk about the key learnings we've had during this super fairs we've conducted.
So we learned a lot in 2021. This was the second year that we'd run the virtual events, and to take you back, time warp per se, before COVID, we didn't run virtual events, and we very quickly pivoted our technology to once COVID unfortunately hit. It was mid-March in New Zealand and similar in Australia as well. We pivoted our technology very quickly to enable these virtual events, and as I said, second year running, we learned quite a lot. So whilst there's a whole laundry list of learnings, we've narrowed it down to the top 5. So let's walk through that. So the first one being that employers absolutely love the idea of synchronized super fairs. They really like, as you know, we work with around 100 employers or so in New Zealand, maybe a few more now. And the likes of Downer and that, I was speaking with them the other day, they really like the idea of jumping online and speaking with students from right across the country, because it's a very scalable and efficient way to speak with students right across the country at a click of a button. But being able to access them or access the event rather via their laptop. That employers very, very much like that, because as you know, they're very, very time poor. The second point being that the panel sessions were really popular. So for those who aren't so familiar with the setup of each super fair we ran this year, they went on for around 2 hours in total. But the first 30 minutes of each event was a panel session dedicated to whether it's, say, 4 employers online and a facilitator like myself or one of the Prosple team, and where we coordinated a bit of a Q&A. And I know all the politics that are online will definitely put the hand up and say that they were extremely popular. Students absolutely loved them, and there was a lot of really good engagement in those panel sessions. One thing we learned is that the virtual booths were a little bit hit or miss. And Frimcel just touched on this in the previous slide, where there were some employers, especially with well-known brands like the likes of KPMG and AECOM, they got heaps of students, right? Because students just go, oh, well, I know this brand, so I'll click on them. But what we found is the smaller employers, the ones with lesser known employer brands, didn't get as many students in their booths. And thus they were left a little bit like, well, we want to speak with students, but it's pretty hard to compete when the likes of AECOM, et cetera, are online, and students just know their brand and they click into their booths. So a little bit hit or miss. And it was very much based and dependent on the employer and their employer brand and awareness in the market. The fourth learning that we had was that online events actually increase accessibility. And what we mean by that is that we had, I'll share my favorite story of the fair. And sorry, I know a few of you would have heard this already, this story, but I remember seeing a student, I believe it was at Wintec student dialing in to the event on their lunch break at KFC. I think it was at KFC. Someone pull me up in the chat if that's incorrect, but it was at KFC, I think, or on their lunch break, talking to the employer about their opportunities. Now, that I think is really cool. As you all know, I'm a massive advocate of physical events. I think they're absolutely fantastic, and there's nothing like having engagement one-on-one with somebody. But that student wouldn't have had opportunity to actually jump onto that event because they were working part-time, and we know that especially in low socioeconomic groups, and we'll talk about the Multi-Pacific Affair that will run again next year. We did that this year. We found that to be extremely popular because we had students from right across the country, whether it was dialing in via their part-time job, on their lunch break, or whatever it might be. It was very, very easy for students to, like a click of a button on their mobile phone, jump online and speak with employers. So we found that to be a really, really big success. The last point being that, and the Polytechs would have felt this a little bit, that there was some marketing lethargy at the end of the events. We ran 7 events within 8 weeks, and it was a lot of effort. It was week after week of the Polytechs promoting it out there to students, and it takes a lot of effort, right? And we understand that, and hence why we've tweaked our format for next year to have it once a month rather than once a week, in order to give our partners more time to promote out to students, and also all the lecturers and that as well, just for everybody to plan a little bit more successfully moving forward. So they were our key takeaways. Frimcel, we're playing like a mic ping pong here, so I'm going to pass the mic back to you to talk through our plans for next year.
Thank you, Grant. So we want to be as diverse as possible. And so for 2022, here are the plans that we have. Now, based on the feedback we've received from employers, Polytechs, students, and the partners we've had last year, we will be tweaking, and we've made some changes in how we will do our super fair. And the way we'll do it is that we will split this into different streams. For example, specific for accounting, engineering, and technology, and it would happen on a monthly basis, unlike having it on a weekly basis. Now, each stream will start with a 40-minute panel session, and during the panel session, we'll have a Prosple representative who would ask questions, and our panelists, representatives from different sector, will be able to answer questions, and students will also have an opportunity to ask questions, and that would run for about 40 minutes, and students can get a better understanding of the different sectors they intend to be with. After each panel session, we will have an employer can host a 20-minute session, much like a TED Talk, wherein they will talk about a specific topic that would interest our students and our partner universities or Polytechs, and we want it to be as engaging as possible. Then students can ask questions via the live Q&A, and it's a good opportunity not just to get to know the employer, but the career they intend to have in the future. This recordings or these sessions will be recorded and also be available via the career directories, and we will also stream this via YouTube, Instagram, and Facebook Live, so we can reach as many students as possible. And events also will be saved in your career directories, student society, social media. Will also send out email alerts or campaigns, and through Grad New Zealand. So what's good with this is that when the student registers, they have an access, and they can go back and refresh their minds into what have they learned and key learnings they have acquired through the sessions. Now, we'll look into the different streams available in the coming weeks, but we would just like to help you also understand why how we come up with the streams per month. So the fairs are actually designed around the majority of jobs that open and close in the last couple of years. And so this is where we got the data in terms of the most popular or majority of the job openings that we have in Prosple or Grad New Zealand. And so coming 2022, you will see that we'll kick off our super fair in March. So please let us know if this is something that would be in conflict with any of your events, so we can look at the sessions and see what we can do about it. So going to the next slide, you'll see that we'll start with March Super Fair, including accounting and advisory, banking and finance, government and public service, law, retail, and consumer goods. And you'll see different streams coming from different sectors. And we want to make sure that this is open to students, because as an engineering student, I might be interested in working under technology or retail and sales and consumer goods. So we want to reach as many students as possible, giving them the best jumpstart for their career. So that's all about our plan for Super Fairs for 2022. In case you will be interested to co-host the event, Grant will show us how it's being done. And if you have questions with any of the 2022 Super Fair plans, please type it in the chat box or in our Q&A, and we'll be happy to answer those.
Thanks, Frimcel. And it's a good point to note, and I'll cover this off in the demo in a tick, that you can be an accounting student or a business student, and you can attend, of course, the accounting advisory stream or the banking stream. But as we all know, FMCG and employers like Mars and Kraft, etc., they also hire accounting advisory and business students. So students can drop into different streams. And hence why we've done it this way, as opposed to a specific dedicated fair for just accounting students or just for law students, etc. So students can jump in and out of streams based on what is important to them and what their career priorities lie. Frimcel, before I go into it, actually, there's a couple of questions in the chat. One came from Ty, Sakura Ty from UCOL. So his question is around, is there employers that can take part in just the panel session or in the speaker slots as well? Would you like to answer that, or shall I?
Yep, I can. So in terms of employers, they can attend both, whichever they intend to sign up for. We have the registration form, and they can choose which option they would like to select. That's
right. So they can do, well, either or both. Yeah. So thanks, Ty. Good clarification there. So I'll quickly walk through a demo in terms of what it's going to look like, and also how it can appear on if you've got a Prosple career directory, how it will appear on that career directory as well. So let me just share my screen here. That should be coming through okay. So first and foremost, like what Frimcel mentioned, is it will be accessible on Grad New Zealand, which we're online right now, or via your own university or Polytech career directory, which I'll talk through in a moment in terms of how that looks. But for the sake of this demo, we're just going to use Grad NZ. Alternatively, as well, it's good to note, if you don't have a Prosple career directory, completely fine. You can just direct students across to Grad New Zealand. The main benefit of having I guess the Prosple career directory and getting your students to register via that is that you can capture all that data, and we can report specifically on how your Polytech's performed on the day as well, and where your students were looking for jobs and whatnot. So from a reporting perspective, makes a lot of sense, but if not, that's completely fine as well. You can just allow your students to go straight to Grad New Zealand. So how it works is we'll have advertising, as I said, on Grad New Zealand. We'll promote it through EDMs, etc. Students will have they'll be able to jump into this register online form here, and it's got a little snapshot. They can register now, which I'll take you through in a moment. They can see all the employers that have signed up. I think we've got about 40 or 50 employers that have signed up already. So tracking really well there. And then they can see obviously all the upcoming super fairs as well. And then, so the idea, the student jumps in here, clicks register now, and at a click of the button, when my internet decides to load, they'll pop in the first name, last name, email is a requirement. And then if they want to put in their student number, they can do this. This is especially useful if you want to track the registrations of which students are attending the fair. So because, as we know, some students will use their Gmail account and some will use their educator account as well, like at Unitech, etc. They can then put in what career they're studying, what qualification they're studying. So whether it's business, creative arts, etc. And then they can tick all or just a few of the streams they'd like to be interested in joining. And the reason why we've done that is we can then promote that out and ensure that the student is getting access to the right streams and the right events once they register. And then, they tick their consent form, submit, and then they register for the event. And then we'll send them the follow-up emails, etc. as well. And that's all taken on. That's all looked after by Prosple. Once I won't, for the sake of our data, I won't put this form through and fill it out. But once they register for the form, register for the event rather, via that form, they then get taken to this a landing page, which will be either on Grant New Zealand or on your career directory. I'll have something like save the date, click to add to calendar. We know a lot of students actually use their calendars now, so that's a really useful tool that we found this year. And then they've got a little legend up the top here. So if they're, for example, a business student, they can see very quickly that Deloitte is hiring business students, KPMG is hiring business students, etc. So it's a neat little key for them to go, okay, which panel session and which employer should I be listening to and jumping on that's relevant for me. So we've got that little legend up the top there. And the idea being that the student will have access. So this is the panel session where we've fully booked out. So we've got Deloitte, KPMG, Baker Tilly, and BDO online for the accounting and advisory stream. And they will literally click that join now button. Obviously, this is demo mode, but they click the join button and they'd access that panel session on the day. Banking, finance, retail, etc. You get the gist. So that's, again, it looks like there's a few questions in the panel. Frimcel, is there anything relevant to this, or do you want to park that to the end?
Let's park it at the end. Most of the questions are about the different super fair events.
Cool. Okay, got it. So just to cover off quickly how it works on your own career directory. So we'll use Belinda and the Unitech team at Unitech team's career directory as an example here. Is we'll have a banner image, something like this at the front, on the front page of the career directory, where the student can click in. And so this is a startup virtual event that we're running in a couple of weeks' time, but it would have March Super Fair, accounting advisory streams, etc. Have all that information there. The student will click on that and it would get diverted across to this page here, but again, on the Unitech career directory. So very similar to this year, the student would jump on by the register now button on your career directory, and like what I just walked through. And as I said, and they go and sign up through there. And as I just said earlier, it's a really, really useful tool because if you promote it through your own career directory, as opposed to Grant New Zealand, I mean, we're happy to help, but it means you can capture some really neat data on what your students are doing and seeing when they're online and on the career fair. So I think that's it in terms of the demo side of things. It's worthwhile touching on that there's a couple of different options in terms of how you can get involved in next year's events. So we'll be running these free synchronized super fairs, which of course you can be involved in. And like I said, we'll work through those dates. I'm very keen to hear. I can see some feedback in terms of the dates and that as well. We want to make sure that it works for everybody online and make sure that it doesn't clash with any physical events or anything. Make sure that we're obviously looking after, if there's any, that we're also fitting into the academic calendar as well. So you can be involved in this free synchronized super fairs. Alternatively, if you want to do something a little bit different and have a single event, we do have that as an option where it's circa 5K NZ to get yourself sorted for that, and we can look after your event being in the same format that we just walked through, where it'll be a panel session and then a bunch of the TED Talks that Frimcel just talked through earlier. So let's allow some time for Q&A.
Juana Paul asked if there is a diversity super fair planned for 2021. I think 2022 rather. It seems that because we have that diversity super fair in 2021, and looking at the super fairs for 2022, will we have a diversity super fair?
It's a very good question. So we'll definitely be doing the Multi-Pacific Affair, which will likely be partnering again with Tupatoa around that. We need to finalize some stuff around that. So that side of diversity, helping Multi-Pacifica students find work, most definitely. We've got that penciled in for June. In terms of the diversity fairs, it's a little bit of a question mark, if I'm honest, right now, because what we found is that not every student actually understood what diversity meant to them and to the employers. So I think if we are to do it, and this is a bit of a, as I said, it's a question mark and it's open for debate within Prosple at the moment, actually. But if we were to do a diversity fairs, it would be a career fair for students with a disability or for students who identify as LGBTQIA, for example. So actually doing more specific career fairs, because we found that whilst the broad career fair was very popular and there was a lot of students online, we found that some students found it a bit confusing in terms of, okay, well, this employer is looking for this sign of diversity, or they've got these, this level of support for students with a disability and providing access, etc. And then others don't. So it was a little bit confusing on that front for the student. So hence why we will, if we are to do it again next year, we will need to tweak it a little bit to make sure it's very plain and simple for the student, to make sure they've got a really good experience when they jump online and speak with employers and they're able to understand which employers offer what. So hopefully that answers your question. I think it was Heiner. Kia ora, Heiner, as well.
Yeah.
One of our new partners that jumped on this week. Any other questions, Frimcel?
Another from C1 Wang. Can you please explain what is international opportunities covers in May Super Fair, and what's the relationship with health and transportation that also happened in the same month?
Yep, great question. So the international opportunities, as you know, there's a lot of international opportunities for Kiwi students, whether they're New Zealanders by whether they've got a PR or they're from here, or alternatively international students who are studying here but they want to work. They want to work back home in Singapore, Malaysia, etc. We know there's a lot of international students that come to New Zealand as well. So that's the purpose of the international opportunities stream that we're looking to cover. There'll also be employers online that do virtual internships, so like the intern group, who they fly in students into international locations right across the world, both in Australia, but also London and America that as well. So there'll be a range of opportunities, but it's basically opportunities outside of New Zealand will be in that stream. So hopefully that answers your question on the first part, Joanne. And the second part was the relationship between health and
transportation.
Would you like to take that one, Frimcel? Give my voice a break.
Yeah. So in terms of relationship for health and transportation, we'll have separate streams for them. Basically, they will not be in the same panel, so to speak. So we'll have separate streams for these different sectors. So we'll have an opportunity for students to be focused on a specific sector or stream. I hope that answers the question. We wouldn't put them all together in one session. They will have their own separate sessions and students can select which stream to join in.
That's correct.
Yep.
And that's something that often the employers get confused by. They're like, oh, I'm an accounting advisory student, but I'm going to be in the same fair as a banking employer. No, it's one stream. So the student would just stay in that stream for the whole 3 hours of the event and step through that. So we'll either be just health or now, of course, students can switch in between, and it's going to be more relevant for example, the March fair, where it was accounting advisory, banking, etc. Like students from finance could work in both sectors, right? So I'm sure there'll be some cross-pollination there. But for health, for example, I'd imagine that nursing students don't want to work in law, so they'll only stay in the health stream per se.
Thank you. I hope that answers the question. Siwan gave a thumbs up, so I think we're good with that. Melinda also asked, would the students have the opportunity to ask questions or engage with employers during the employers' individual sessions? The idea is for them to actually have that interaction, because the Super Fair's intention is to make sure that we connect the students with the employers and ensure that they have that conversation. And we encourage students to turn on their camera and ask questions up front. But if in the event that they're not comfortable doing that, we also open the chat box and Q&A for them to ask questions. Thank you.
There's a question from Joy in regards to the timing of the events. Frimcel, do you want to take that one?
For the timing, as far as we don't have a specific time yet, but we're open to feedback or suggestions in case there is a preferred time. Because I know that when we've had a startup virtual career fair in December, there are partners who expressed that 6 p.m. New Zealand time might be a little bit late for students. So if there are any recommendations as to what would be the best time for us to do this, we'll be more than happy to take that in and include that in our assets or marketing materials. So open to suggestions as to what would be the best time.
So I think we've got a penciled in for 2 o'clock at the moment. The one last thing I thought just to touch on as well is the communications that we'll provide to everyone online as well, and all the careers teams, Frimcel. So as all the polytechs will know, that we put together a lot of collateral per se in terms of the fairs and how you can promote it out. So we'll continue obviously to provide those templates and ongoing marketing support for next year. We've actually beefed up our marketing team recently as well. So there'll be a lot of collateral that you'll be able to obviously tweak. I know that some of you did your own thing. I know Otago Polytech did an awesome job of, Mark and the team did an awesome job of, they had like these really cool banners and that type of stuff on campus when we were on campus a few months ago before COVID rolled back into New Zealand, unfortunately. But so that type of stuff we don't do, but EDMs, obviously the banner ads on your career directory, etc. We'll continue to provide that support moving into 2022.
Class, ask a question. Could you share your exhibitor handbook again?
Yes, most definitely, Klaus.
And
we'll actually need to. It's a good point, Klaus, and that's on the bucket list for me to do, is to tweak that exhibitor handbook, because there will be obviously a little bit of a tweak in terms of the way that we're setting up the fairs. Whereas this year it was 30-minute panel session, then the virtual booze, where it's actually a virtual stream per se. So we need to tweak it a little bit, but 100% we'll share that once that's completed.
And while we might still have some questions out there, I would like to plug our event. We'll be having our Startup Virtual Career Fair on December 10. That's a concurrent event within APAC region. So we've invited different startup companies from India, Indonesia, Malaysia, Singapore, Philippines, and Australia and New Zealand. So we are inviting polytechs and universities and our partners to join that session. It's a great opportunity, especially for those who are intending to apply or want to work outside or internationally. So that's a great opportunity to get to know startup founders and even managing directors, because that's a great opportunity for everyone to learn as well.
Thanks everyone for jumping online. Again, really, generally really excited about helping you all out and helping your students out moving into next year. As you know, we're particularly passionate about this space and helping students find their dream jobs. So we see virtual events as just being another thing to our arsenal to help those students find work. So feel free to get in touch with myself or Frimcel and ask any questions if you'd like. Right. Thanks everyone.
Thanks everyone, and have a great day. Bye.